welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, or what you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at 3 stories in one. Yes, that's right, we're looking at Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and The Last of the Time Lords. 3 stories which I'm just going to call the Utopia Trilogy, the return of the Master, and of course some of the most beloved stories of the New Who era. I hope you enjoy. Whilst it is a 3-part story, Russell T Davies actually considers Utopia to be a separate story to the other 2 parts. This is the first episode in the revival era where there are 3 cast members credited in the opening sequence. Utopia is the 3rd time Derek Jacobi is involved in Doctor Who, and is his 2nd time as the Master. His first was in Scream of the Shulker. This is the first 3-part story since Survival, which also featured the Master as the main villain. The voice clip when the Master opens his watch is a clip from Roger Delago from The Daemons. There is also a voice clip of Anthony Ainsley laughing used. A clip of Eric Roberts was going to be used, but Fox refused the BBC from using any clips from the movie. This story features the 2nd regeneration scene in which the Time Lord subject is shown to be standing, and the first time in the revival series where the Time Lord other than the Doctor visibly regenerates. Originally, the opening sequence would have featured Captain Jack on the side of the TARDIS. However, the idea wasn't fully realised, which Russell T Davies later admitted to wishing that they went through with. The keyboard Chantho uses is a keyboard for the Japanese hiragana. This is the first episode to identify the severed hand Jack possesses as belonging to the Doctor. Utopia is technically a continuation of the Torchwood episode End of Days. This is the first time in the revival where the Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver in a vertical fashion, reminiscent of the classic era. Professor Yana's costume is based on the first Doctor's attire. Captain Jack's immortality is finally explained. When Rose Tyler as the Bad Wolf resurrected him, she couldn't control the power and brought him back forever, as a living fixed point in time. The Doctor's response to the Master asking him to use my name was originally intended to reveal who Yana really was, but the writing team decided it would have been a pity to have Derek Jacobi not be able to utter his catchphrase during his brief stint as the character. The Future Kind originally travelled around on quad bikes. This was abandoned due to safety reasons. John Barrowman performed the stunt where Jack leaps onto the TARDIS on his birthday. Russell T Davies kept claiming that he was not interested in bringing back the Master, in order to keep the Master's return a secret. As I have mentioned before in my Dalek episode, the Toclafane were initially created to replace the Daleks if the production was unable to attain the rights. They were of course able to, but the idea of the Toclafane was kept alive and finally used in this story. In fact, the Toclafane and the Daleks share a lot of similarities, such as the fact they are both mutated species put into a metal shell and use laser death rays to take on inferior species. Some of the car action sequences in this episode were filmed by Freema Agyeman herself rather than a stunt double. David Tennant's makeup, in which he is aged 100 years, was inspired by the first Doctor, although I can't really see a resemblance. By featuring the Master as a child, this is the only time the Master's first incarnation is shown. The 4 drum beats was not inspired by the Doctor Who theme, but rather by alarm clocks. The Master wears variations of various outfits from different stories. He wears a black single-breasted suit, white shirt and black tie from Planet of Fire, albeit without the black leather gloves worn in the original costume. He also wears a black overcoat with red satin lining, like the John Pertwee's early outfit, and black leather gloves during his airport meeting with the President Winters. When the Doctor and the Master are speaking to each other over the phone, they are really talking to the other person instead of having the lines read to them on set. David Tennant and John Smith called each other in order to make the scene more authentic. As the Toclafane remove 1/10 of the population, Noel Clarke's voice can be heard during the alarm calls. Martha's suggestion that the Doctor and the Master are brothers was dismissed by the Doctor, and was Russell T Davies' response to a popular fan theory. It was also the idea of a scrapped plotline for Doctor Who the movie, which would have been a series afterwards, which he found rather daft. The Gallifreyan headpiece was an original prop from the classic series. At the suggestion of Gary Russell, the young Master's outfit reflected the early Time Lord's costume established in the War Games. Last of the Time Lords is the 2nd consecutive series finale to end with the Doctor saying, "What?" in utter confusion, the first being Doomsday. The Doctor states a desire to meet Agatha Christie, foreshadowing the Unicorn and the Wasp. The title Last of the Time Lords had previously been reported as a working title for one of the ultimately aborted big screen adaptations of the series planned between 1989 and 2005. A poster showing the title, Doctor Who The Last of the Time Lords, even appeared in some film trade publications. The Face a Bow revelation means that technically Captain Jack's first appearance was in The End of the World. In a deleted scene before leaving the Doctor, Jack recites, "The 21st century is when it all changes, and you've got to be ready," monologue heard at the beginning of all Torchwood episodes. The mysterious woman's hand with the red nails which picked up the ring in the final scene actually belongs to production manager Tracy Simpson. The Last of the Time Lords is the only finale in the Russell T Davies era where the Daleks don't appear. Scissor Sisters, I Can't Decide saw a bump in popularity after its use in this story. Originally, Downing Street played a much larger role in this story, serving as the location for the last of Martha's decoy chemicals. At this stage, Milligan was in fact a traitor who was killed after betraying Martha to the Master. Russell T Davies began to feel that the world of the ravaged Earth deserved greater exploration. The Last of the Time Lords is the final story to feature the 2005 theme tune before it would be updated. The Master's greatest fear was once revealed as an image of the Doctor towering over him refers to the third Doctor story, The Mind of Evil. The Master makes several references to Doctor Who past when talking to the Doctor, such as the Axos and the Sea Devils. The song Voodoo Child was selected not only because of the lyrics, "Here come the drums, the sound of drums," but also because for Davies it encapsulates an evil Time Lord. The Master offers Jelly Babies a reference to the Fourth Doctor. The speech in The Sound of Drums, which began, "Peoples of Earth, please attend carefully," paralleled a similar pronouncement in the serial Logopolis. The Master's fascination with the Teletubbies is a reference to the Sea Devils, where the Master becomes fascinated with the Clangers. Martha leaving was because Russell T Davies found that Martha's love for the Doctor would become stale. Initially, the male Saxon agent from the Lazarus experiment and the female agent from 42 was to play a role, but they were replaced. Derek Jacobi's short on-screen appearance as the Master was hugely popular, and as a result, Big Finish created the War Master stories. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. As you can see, there's a lot of facts with the Utopia trilogy, especially because we're technically going through 3 different episodes. And I gotta say, I absolutely love the Utopia trilogy. This is one of the best ways to bring back a classic villain, and then in this case, it's the Master. An absolutely fantastic trilogy of episodes. But it's also an incredibly bleak story overall. There's a lot of downtroddenness throughout it. For example, obviously, the Master takes over the world. He slaughters like 1/10 of the human population. But not only that, the whole fact that the Toclophane are actually humans from the end of the universe who, instead of being greeted with this paradise, are instead transformed into these horrible, Sophias, these Toclophane. It's absolutely horrifying in all aspects. Like, this is a very bleak story and a very unsettling story in that aspect, but I really, really, really love this story. I will say this, however, I think the ending of the story with the Last of the Time Lords, especially when the Doctor somehow comes back to his normal self when everyone says "Doctor, Doctor, Doctor," is probably one of the worst moments in the revival era, without a doubt. I absolutely hate that scene. It is such a Deus Ex Machina. It is such a terrible moment, and it really does bring down this whole story. Obviously, they needed a way of wrapping things up and making things better again, but yeah, they could have done a much better job, in my opinion. That said, this is a truly fantastic trilogy. Just because there's one absolutely god-awful scene, it does not take away from the bleakness of this story, it's a really dark trilogy in all aspects, but it's fantastic, and the Master is brilliant. Derek Jacobi is obviously a fantastic Master, and of course the audiobooks make him even better. And of course Johnson, I think, is also very good. I do think that this is obviously the start of the whole insane Master, that, a bit of a goofball in a way, which I know some people don't really like. I'm hit or miss with that idea, but I actually don't hate it that much. I do think John Sim does a fantastic job, and I think this is truly a fantastic set of episodes. Truly some of the best in the revival era by a long shot, even with that absolutely terrible ending, but let's just not get into that. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.